What happens when the final breath escapes your lips? Does the mind simply fade into nothingness? Or does it awaken to realities far stranger than we can imagine? For centuries, mystics, philosophers, and seekers of truth have asked this haunting question. And while science speaks of neurons and biology, ancient wisdom tells a far more mysterious story. Welcome, wanderer, to a journey into one of the most extraordinary guides to the afterlife ever written. A text whispered in monasteries, carried across mountains, hidden from enemies, and spoken into the ears of the dying. A book not of theories, but of directions. Not just for the dead, but for the living who dare to look beyond the veil. I speak of the Bardo Thodol, what the West calls the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This is not a book of superstition, it is a map, a chart of the soul's passage after death, through realms of light and shadow, through visions that reveal the deepest nature of the mind. To study it is to confront our greatest fear, and perhaps uncover our greatest liberation. So tonight, let us open its pages together. Let us walk the corridors of Tibetan wisdom, where the boundary between life and death is not a wall, but a door. The origins of the Bardo Thodol stretch back to the 8th century, to a figure wrapped in myth and reverence, Padmasambhava, the lotus-born, known in Tibet as Guru Rinpoche, the precious master. Padmasambhava was no ordinary teacher. According to tradition, he was not born from a woman's womb, but appeared miraculously on a lotus flower floating on a sacred lake in India. From his earliest years, he displayed powers and insights that defied ordinary explanation. He mastered tantric practices, communed with spirits, and revealed teachings that blended philosophy with direct mystical experience. Tibet in his time was not a Buddhist land. It was a world of fierce mountains, nomadic tribes, and ancient rituals rooted in the Bon tradition, the indigenous shamanic faith of the Himalayas. Kings ruled through both sword and spirit, and the unseen world of gods and demons was never far from daily life. When King Trisong Detsen sought to establish Buddhism in Tibet, he faced resistance, not only from local rulers, but from the very spirits of the land. It is said that the mountains shook, storms raged, and unseen forces rose up to block the building of monasteries. Arriving in Tibet, Padmasambhava did not destroy the spirits of Bon. He did something far more extraordinary. He transformed them. Through rituals, mantras, and deep meditative power, he tamed these spirits and bound them as protectors of the Dharma. In doing so, he wove the old faith into the new, creating a uniquely Tibetan Buddhism that embraced both wisdom and mystery. But Padmasambhava's mission did not end with the living. He saw clearly that death itself was the ultimate journey, the greatest passage every soul must face. He understood that at the moment of death, the mind is laid bare, stripped of body and distraction, and in that raw state lies the greatest opportunity for liberation. The problem? Fear blinds us. Attachments pull us back. Illusions twist our vision. So Padmasambhava created a guide, a set of instructions that could be whispered into the ears of the dying or studied in life to prepare for what is to come, a text that would serve as compass and lantern in the darkest journey of all. What does Bardo Thodol mean? The name itself reveals its purpose. Bardo means in-between state or transition. It is the space between death and rebirth, between one life and the next, between illusion and awakening. Thodol means liberation through hearing. Put together, liberation by hearing in the intermediate state. Why by hearing? Because the text was meant to be read aloud, to the dying, to the newly dead, and to those still living but preparing for death. The very sound of its words, according to Tibetan tradition, could awaken recognition in the soul, reminding it of the truth when all else fades away. Imagine lying on your deathbed. Your breath grows shallow. The body weakens. Around you, loved ones weep. But then, someone begins to read aloud. Words describing light. Words reminding you that fear is illusion. Words pointing you toward the very nature of your mind. To understand why this text is so profound, we must step into the Tibetan view of existence. Unlike many Western philosophies that see life and death as opposites, Tibetan Buddhism views them as parts of a single cycle. Birth, death, rebirth. These are not separate events, but movements in an endless wheel called samsara. And yet, at each turn of the wheel, there lies a chance to break free. Death is not the end. It is the opening. It is the moment the soul can either awaken to truth or fall dead. If the Bardo Thodol is a map of the in-between, it is not the only map humanity has drawn. Across cultures and centuries, different civilizations have asked the same questions. What happens when life ends? Is there judgment, rebirth, silence? And can the living prepare for the unknown? The answers vary, but a common thread runs through them all. A belief that death is not the end, but a passage into another realm. Let us walk through some of these visions, for in them we discover echoes of the Bardo Thodol, and perhaps universal truths about the human condition. Long before Tibet's high monasteries, the Egyptians crafted one of the most elaborate guides to the afterlife, the Book of the Dead. But unlike the Bardo Thodol, which emphasizes recognition of the mind's nature, the Egyptian path was a moral and cosmic one. The soul upon death entered the Hall of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and order. There, the heart of the deceased was placed on a scale, weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If the heart was light, untainted by lies, cruelty, and dishonor, the soul passed into the blissful fields of Aru. But if heavy with sin, the heart was devoured by Ammit, the crocodile lion hippo monster, and the soul was destroyed forever. To prepare for this test, Egyptians filled tombs with spells, prayers, and rituals, meant to guide the dead through trials and protect them from dangers. Just like Tibetans whispered the Bardo Thodol, the Egyptians spoke words of power into the ears of the dead, arming them for their journey. Where Tibet saw illusion and liberation, Egypt saw judgment and balance. Both reveal a truth: how we live shapes how we die. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks painted their own vision of the underworld. When a soul left its body, it was said to wander to the river Styx, where the ferryman Charon waited to take it across. But this journey required payment, a coin placed under the tongue or on the eyes of the deceased. Without it, the soul was doomed to wander the shores, restless and lost. Beyond the river lay the realm of Hades, a vast underworld with many fates. The heroic might dwell in the Elysian fields, a paradise of eternal rest. Others roamed the asphodel meadows, a gray land of forgetfulness. The wicked were cast into Tartarus, a pit of torment and punishment. The Greeks saw death as a descent, a journey into shadows where one's deeds in life determine one's fate. Their myths echo the Tibetan Bardos, not in detail, but in the idea that death is a passage, not a final stop. Far closer to Tibet, in the traditions of India, we find the roots that fed Tibetan Buddhism itself. Hinduism teaches that life and death are movements within samsara, the endless cycle of rebirth. Here, the soul, called the Atman, travels from body to body, life to life, guided by karma. Actions, intentions, and thoughts plant seeds that shape the next existence. At death, Hindu texts describe the soul leaving the body through one of many channels. If it departs through the crown of the head, it ascends toward liberation, merging with Brahman, the ultimate reality. But if pulled downward by desire or fear, it is reborn again. This vision shares deep resonance with the Bardo Thodol. Both speak of an opportunity at the moment of death, an opening where liberation is possible. Both warn of being pulled back by attachment, and both remind us that death is not an enemy, but a teacher. The Christian view, shaped by centuries of theology, is both hopeful and sobering. Death is followed by judgment, where each soul is weighed, not against a feather, but against the will of God. For the righteous, there is heaven, eternal communion with the divine. For the wicked, hell, separation and suffering. Some traditions speak of purgatory, a temporary state of cleansing before entering paradise. Unlike the Tibetan vision of continuous rebirth, Christianity offers a finality: one life, one judgment, one eternal destination. Yet even here, the echoes remain. Like the Bardo Thodol, Christianity emphasizes preparation, to live with awareness, humility, and compassion, so that when death comes, the soul is ready. From Egypt's scales, to Greece's shadows, to India's rebirth, to Tibet's bardos, to Christianity's judgment, different forms but one pattern. Death as a transition, a journey requiring guidance, a test of the soul's essence, a chance for liberation or downfall. Why do so many cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, converge on this vision? Perhaps because in the silence of death, humanity hears the same truth. The Bardo Thodol does not deny these parallels. It deepens them. Where others speak of judgment, it speaks of recognition. Where others speak of gods or demons, it says, these are your own mind, reflected back at you. Where others see finality, what is the mind? It is a question that has haunted philosophers, mystics, and scientists alike. Is it the firing of neurons, a shadow of the brain, or something beyond matter, something timeless, vast, and luminous? For Tibetan Buddhism, the answer is profound. The mind is not a product of the body, it is the foundation of existence itself. The body may perish, but the mind continues, flowing from life to life, world to world, in an endless stream of awareness. At the core of Tibetan teachings lies a vision both radical and elegant. The ultimate nature of the mind is called the clear light. This clear light is not an object, not a thought, not even an image. It is pure awareness, silent, boundless, radiant. Most of us never see it directly, for our minds are clouded with distractions, fears, and desires. But in the moment of death, when all else falls away, the clear light shines. The Bardo Thodol describes this moment vividly. As the body dissolves, the dying person encounters a brilliance beyond measure, a light so powerful it can overwhelm the unprepared. This light is not outside, it is the radiance of one's own consciousness, unveiled at last. Recognition of this truth means liberation. Failure to recognize it means confusion, fear, and rebirth. In other words, salvation and delusion are separated only by a breath of awareness. To understand this, Tibetan teachers speak of the mind in layers. On the surface, we have the gross mind, the chattering thoughts, the emotions, the constant commentary that fills our waking hours. Beneath that lies the subtle mind, the dream state, imagination, intuition, and the fluid realms we touch in sleep or meditation. Deeper still is the very subtle mind, the clear light, the foundation that persists beyond death. The Bardo Thodol is essentially a manual for guiding the dying person from the gross to the subtle, and finally into recognition of the very subtle, the clear light. It is a journey inward, not outward. One of the most striking metaphors Tibetan masters use is that of a mirror. Imagine a mirror. It reflects faces, landscapes, storms, and sunshine. Yet no matter what appears, the mirror itself remains unchanged, clear, open, unstained. The mind is that mirror. Thoughts, fears, memories, even entire lifetimes, they are reflections. They come and go. But the awareness itself, the mirror-like clarity, remains untouched. The tragedy is that most of us identify with the reflections, not the mirror. We cling to the images, forgetting the surface that holds them. And so in life and in death, we mistake appearances for reality. The Bardo Thodol whispers a reminder: you are not the reflections. You are the mirror itself. But if the mind is luminous and free, why do we suffer? Why do we fear? Why do we wander in cycles of birth and death? Here enters the concept of karma. Karma is not punishment nor reward. It is momentum. Every thought, word, and action plants a seed in the field of consciousness. Those seeds sprout in future experiences, shaping not only this life, but the lives to come. In death, these karmic imprints surge forth. The peaceful and wrathful deities of the Bardo Thodol, terrifying or radiant visions, are expressions of one's own mind shaped by karma. If you have cultivated compassion, wisdom, and courage, the visions may appear as guides. If you have cultivated fear, greed, and hatred, they may appear as demons. But in truth, they are all you, all your mind. The teaching here is radical. Heaven and hell are not places, they are projections of consciousness. Tibetan masters often point to the dream state as a rehearsal for death. In dreams, the body is at rest, the senses withdrawn, and yet the mind continues, creating landscapes, dramas, and beings that feel real in the moment. Does this not mirror the bardos? When the body lies still in death, the mind again projects visions, luminous and terrifying, peaceful and wrathful. This is why practices like lucid dreaming and dream yoga were cultivated in Tibet, not merely for curiosity, but as preparation for death. To recognize in dreams that this is illusion trains the mind to do the same in the bardos. If you can wake up in the dream, you can wake up in death. What is striking is how these teachings resonate even today. Modern neuroscience may not speak of clear light, but researchers studying near-death experiences describe something eerily familiar. Tunnels of light, overwhelming radiance, encounters with beings of peace or fear. Are these hallucinations or glimpses of the same bardos the Tibetans mapped centuries ago? Science has yet to answer, but what it cannot deny is the central insight. Consciousness does not simply switch off in the way a light bulb does. It transforms, it shifts, it reveals depths we barely under. The word bardo means in between, a threshold, a passage, a state between states. According to the Bardo Total, there are 6 bardos in total, covering not only death, but the whole span of existence. Yet 3 are especially crucial for the dying. It begins with silence. The breath weakens, the senses grow dim, the body, once vibrant, feels distant, like a garment being shed. Tibetan texts describe this as the dissolution of the elements. Earth, water, fire, air. Each dissolves back into its source. As they do, the dying person experiences visions. As earth dissolves, there is heaviness, sinking, and a vision of the world crumbling. As water dissolves, fluids dry, the mouth parches, and visions of rivers or floods appear. As fire dissolves, warmth fades from the body, sparks flash in the mind, and a vision of flames arises. As air dissolves, breath becomes shallow and one feels tossed about, like leaves in the wind. Finally, the outer breath ceases, yet the mind is not gone. The inner breath, the subtle wind of consciousness, remains. At this moment, the Bardo Total says, the dying person encounters the clear light of reality, a radiance beyond sun or star, limitless and dazzling. For the prepared, this is the moment of liberation. To recognize this light as one's own mind is to awaken, to break free from the cycle of rebirth. But few recognize it. Most are overwhelmed, recoiling in fear or confusion. The light fades and consciousness slips into the next bardo. In the Chonyid Bardo, consciousness is freed from the body, but not yet reborn. What arises now are the projections of one's own mind, archetypes of peace, wrath, beauty, and terror. For the first days, the dying person encounters the peaceful deities. These are luminous Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, radiant forms of wisdom and compassion. They appear in dazzling colors, carrying symbols of liberation. Lotuses, wheels, jewels, lights. The text describes them in rich detail. Brilliant lights shining in every direction, each linked to a wisdom aspect of the mind. For example, a blue light representing the wisdom of vast space, a white light representing clarity and purity, a red light representing compassion and love, a green light representing action and accomplishment, a yellow light representing richness and abundance. Each light is overwhelming, brighter than 1,000 suns. If recognized, these lights and deities are doorways to liberation, but the unprepared soul shrinks away, terrified by their intensity. And so, after the peaceful visions, come the wrathful ones. These are the same energies, the same aspects of mind, but reflected in terrifying forms. Fanged, blood-drinking, flame-wreathed deities, brandishing weapons and roaring thunder. To the fearful, they seem like demons, but the text insists they are not enemies. They are your own mind's energy, distorted by fear. The teaching is clear. If you recognize them as illusions, you are free. If you run from them, you are trapped. The wrathful deities appear for many days, growing more fearsome, more chaotic. Some ride tigers, some hold skull cups, some wield blazing swords. They roar, they scream, they chase. But if the dying one remembers the whispers of the Lama, the text being read aloud, they may recall, "Fear not. These too are your mind." Recognize them as the Chonyad Bardo progresses, visions of judgment unfold. The deceased may see a great mirror reflecting all their deeds. They may hear voices weighing their actions, feel themselves dragged toward light or darkness. These are karmic visions, the surfacing of one's moral and psychological imprints. There is no external judge, only the mind itself, revealing what it has carried. Here again, recognition is key. To see these as mind-created is to loosen their grip. To mistake them as external is to be swept into fear or craving. If liberation has not been attained, consciousness enters the final stage, the Sidpa Bardo. Here the soul, now restless and unstable, seeks a new home. Driven by karma, it drifts, experiencing visions of future lives. Some are blissful, some terrifying. Palaces and paradises, flames and prisons. The consciousness sees potential parents, drawn by desire or aversion. It feels itself pulled toward rebirth, helplessly compelled by the seeds it has sown. The Bardo Thodol describes this vividly. The soul may feel as though it is being chased by winds, cast into caves, or drawn toward wombs of different realms, human, animal, spirit, even godly. And then, the cycle begins again. Rebirth, forgetfulness, another life in samsara. Unless liberation has been seized, the wheel turns once more. At first glance, these visions may seem fantastical. Brilliant lights, peaceful deities, wrathful demons. Are they real or imagination? The Tibetan answer, they are both. Real as experiences, but not solid as things. They are the play of consciousness, shaped by karma and me,